Hey everybody, it's Safi and Marco Dish Out on Movies, the only movie review show on YouTube to review movies in terms of food. And it is just Marco here for a brief moment. Well, actually, I don't know if it'll be brief, but last night, Safi and I saw Killers of the Flower Moon. I saw it for the third time. I've seen it two other times in the past 2 weeks, and honestly, if it were in theaters, like still next week, I would see it a fourth time, and then I would probably walk into the newest release movie and, not pay for that one. Uh, so I really enjoyed seeing it for the third time. In fact, I think the third time has been my favorite time seeing it so far. When I saw it the first time, it really felt like it flew by. Like, I did not feel like it was 3.5 hours. I felt like it was like an hour and 30 or something. Like, it was that fast. And then the second time I saw it, and it felt like it was a lot longer than it was. Because I felt like, I already knew all the things that were going to happen. And so it was kind of like, okay, let's get there. But then the third time, I really enjoyed myself a ton. I just enjoyed every minute of it, and I just, I can't wait to watch it again because it's just so good. And it's not like the greatest movie. It's not the best Scorsese movie, which, in fact, I could do a ranking of his movies for today as well. And maybe I will do that. But I haven't seen all of his movies, obviously. There's quite a few that I still need to catch up on. So, yeah, the third time, I got a sub sandwich, and I snuck in a foot-long sub. And it was such an amazing experience because, usually I hate getting, crunchy snacks like popcorn and chips at the theater because I get self-conscious about the chewing and the sounds that it makes. So eating these sub sandwiches was the perfect quiet food, and it was really delicious. Subway did a really good job, and I think that the thing that happened this last time is that I am such a huge fan of Lily Gladstone in this movie. And in fact, there will be more with that pretty soon coming up this month that I will talk about with her films. And so, this time I saw it, and I told you guys the only reason I was seeing it for a third time was because of her. And I'm not kidding when I tell you guys, you know how they talk about in Hollywood how you can, scan an entire actor and then just use that scan to put them anywhere. I felt like watching this movie the third time, I'm pretty sure that I scanned Lily's entire figure, and that I could put her in anything. And so I thought that was kind of fun. That was the best part of the movie experience, was this movie's such a never ending gift. Everything about this movie is just exactly what I want to see at the movies. And I really hope that she's in more movies pretty soon so that I can go see her on the big screen again. Because it would be really disappointing if she did her next thing would just come straight to video or something. I'd be really upset because I want to go see her in a theater on the big screen. Where the screen is really big, and it makes people look really big, too. But Safi, now it is time to hear Safi's perspective. Safi is the local, no, she's not. I was going to make a joke, and then I thought, that wasn't a very good joke. So I'm going to go talk to Safi, and then I'm going to come back and rank all the Scorsese movies that I've seen so far. Let's go. Safi, you want to talk about the movie now? turn that off for a second. Let's talk about that. So, Safi, what did you think of seeing Killers of the Flower Moon?
Well, it made me interested in the story. I was glad to become aware of the story, and I thought the acting was really good. The story was really good. They put a lot of effort into it, I think, and there was a nice, interesting touch at the very end. They did. We have listened to a lot of, like when we go on a trip. When we've gone on a trip, we've listened to books on tape, or usually it's been like radio shows, and they did like a radio broadcast of this story, like a brief, like a news thing, and they put all these sound effects in, like writing a letter, typing a letter, so they have a, like one of those old-fashioned typewriters where it's really hard to use, and they're hard to use, and all kinds of noises. It was interesting. And then they had the actors, they had the gigantic microphone they used, and I thought it was an interesting touch at the end to kind of tell what happens in the story that they don't cover in the movie, the ending of it. Or the epilogue, I should say. So I just thought it was a very well-rounded movie. And I thought they had a pretty good cast. They picked Brendan Fraser to play a lawyer for the Robert De Niro's part. And he did just what they talk about these not so good lawyers today. I won't say who, but I mean, it was interesting. But he was just not very good.
Yeah.
And he didn't look very good.
Yeah.
And I thought Robert De Niro really looked his age. Usually, when you see him, he doesn't look as old as he looked in the movie. And I'm glad that the Native Americans in the movie wore, clothing that had been synonymous with their culture. And, maybe some of them still wear it today. I don't know. I mean, Navajos wear clothes that they've been wearing forever. I mean, traditionally.
Speaking of Navajos, wouldn't you say that this movie was a lot better of a mystery than Dark Winds?
Yes, because I think they did their research. And the writing was really good. And Martin Scorsese is a very experienced director. He probably has a huge catalog of people he's used in movies who he can rely on and who he knows their reputation and that they can do a good job. Although this was very interesting. And even the questions that they had, like for instance, we were wondering, and this has been a problem before, where it's been dark or they haven't shown something and we couldn't read it. And so we were wondering about this poison.
Yeah.
And that is not even clear in the real world, in the real story. Guess what the problem was? Was she even getting insulin? And so she would have been sicker than a dog after getting insulin, and then it being just like water or something. And then also this other stuff, it's just not clear if that was poison or not.
Well, apparently, they do not know if he actually was, intentionally poisoning his wife or not.
I don't think he was.
And I don't think that he was either, because
he loved her.
His uncle was very devious.
He was.
And
manipulative.
He really didn't care about anybody but himself.
No, he didn't.
And so, I would much more believe that he would not have trusted him to do that, even though, because, his character, wouldn't you say that this is one of Scorsese's, least, likable main characters, in the sense that you can't really understand him very much,
Which one?
Leonardo
Robert De Niro.
DiCaprio.
Oh,
Because, like, you think about...
I just think he was doing his uncle's bidding.
Yeah.
And he felt obligated. And
It just didn't
why,
feel...
I don't know.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Like, it just didn't feel all that, like, empathetic. Like, you know, oh, I would do that, I would do that. Like, it just felt like, wow, he's really like a bitch. And he's killing people, too. He's having people killed. And, you know, you do see the effects that he's of him doing that he has on him. Yeah.
And that explosion, he helped arrange, not indirectly, a explosion of a house where his sister-in-law and her husband lived.
Yeah.
And you saw a hand. It was their maid. They had a maid in the street amongst the ruins, and then the dead body of his sister-in-law. She didn't look too bad, but I mean, it was. I mean, you could see all that. I mean, it was. I mean, that's what I say. Video is for visual and showing.
Yeah.
And that is something I would say Scorsese's pretty good at.
Yeah.
Because they did a lot of things which it's not really rocket science.
Yeah.
I think.
You didn't really have to make up the story yourself because it was right there. Like, there are things that we wonder, but the stuff that we're wondering about, that's not really their fault because obviously those people are all dead. And a lot of the questions that you could have, they probably never would have answered anyway.
Well, it makes me wonder about the area, about Oklahoma, because we have family. One of our great-great-great-great-grandfathers went there, and his wife died, and then he found another one and brought her home. And from there, that area, and she was from Indiana. So, I mean, it makes me wonder what it was like there. And I had never heard about any of this. And I just learned about that Tulsa thing just a couple years ago. And so I knew what that was about. That's not history. You don't learn that in school?
Yeah, you do.
I sure as heck didn't.
I did.
Well, I didn't. And then this thing with the Osage Indians, I lived in Missouri. I was there in Missouri from 7th to 12th grade in a shitty school system, I should say. Sorry.
And you
Lexington.
said people got paddled at your school as well.
They did in the grade school part. They were still doing that.
Was it like in the movie?
I don't know. That was weird. That was another question that came to my mind about the Masons. Because I thought, is that a Masonic thing to do?
Yeah.
You know, I never heard of that either. But they're very secretive. They're supposed to be, if they're supposed to keep everything about their place a secret. That's their thing. But anyway, you know, you just, there's all these questions that come to mind. It's not because they're ineffectual at telling a story. It's just that there were some things that they happened long ago, and unless it's recorded somewhere, and just unless it's recorded somewhere, we're not going to know about it. We're not going to get the whole story. It's like archaeology. You know, you go to a site and you find fragments and you find of different things. So you say, oh, well, they must have eaten this kind of animal, et cetera, et cetera. You know, you put it's like a puzzle, and you put it together. And this is one of those things where it's history, and you know, it was very hard for them to even get their own mystery figured out. Remember, they hired a private detective. The girl did, Molly. And he was killed. And of course, I think her husband had something to do with that, right? Or was it just Robert De Niro? I started to lose track because there were so many. You need to shut them up. And then remember, he had to sign those papers at the end.
Because he wanted to kill him too.
Yeah. And you knew that was that. And he knew, I think he knew it too.
Yeah.
So there's just, it's very interesting. I think I might read the book. And I said this about Indelicate for the American Horror Story, and I really don't like the book. Marco says I have to finish it because I said I would.
You did.
And that I have to review it. So I guess I'll just have to download it again and listen to it. But I don't care for it. It's boring.
And we should say, too, I had the foot-long sub. Safi, instead of playing it smart, Safi decided to get nacho chips and cheese, and then a strawberry Fanta.
Which I'm drinking now.
And she started coughing when she ate the chips. So, that's all she had for dinner.
I didn't have anything.
It was just a couple of chips.
I had a cookie.
Yeah, and then we both had a Subway cookie. And see, at least she's lucky I went to Subway.
Yeah, I don't like Subway. It's nothing wrong with Subway. I just don't like eating all that bread.
Well, maybe you could have made an exception.
No.
A smart exception.
No.
And Safi, did it feel like 3.5 hours to you? Because you're one of the biggest complainers. And so, would you say, oh, it was so grueling to watch that in theaters? Mwah. Did it feel like it?
No, because it was a really good movie.
Oh, there you go.
When it's a really good movie, and it keeps you captivated, and it's just like we're wondering now more about the story. And that's a good thing, I think. And it's not because of plot holes, it's because they don't have the information either.
Yeah.
But when you go to a movie and it's bad, and like that one we've seen a couple, they don't edit it. One was
Justice League.
It was
that's one of the worst movies I've ever seen.
It was a director's cut.
Yeah.
And he thought, they've got to have this detail and this detail, and they're not going to survive if they don't have it or something. I don't know what his thinking was.
Well, he not only added all the stuff back in, but he shot new stuff that he didn't intend on putting in the film originally. So it's really not a director's cut because he added new footage and new stuff that he wasn't going to add originally.
So there's no editing, and it was just miserable.
Yeah.
You're miserable watching that movie.
And then Babylon as well.
That was another one.
Yeah.
Those are two very obvious movies.
And Terrifier 2.
Ugh.
Ugh.
So, it was just, and it can become like torture.
Yeah.
That's what I would say.
Well, this was not torture because I saw it 3 times and I didn't have a problem any of the times.
Actually, it was really funny because during the movie, we had to listen to somebody snoring.
Oh, yeah.
So obviously, they did not find the movie entertaining, or it was too much above them, I guess, or they just didn't care for the actors. I don't know how they could not really get into this Molly, who's an American Indian.
Yeah, how could you not get into her?
Well, to see a Native Americans, it's a good thing to see them be something instead of war hoops and running around on horseback killing people.
It's good too because she was not like Emanuelita in Dark Winds. She was a strong female character, unlike Emanuelita.
Well, without them saying she's a strong female character, she just was who she was. And she was sick too. She had diabetes, and I can't even imagine what that would have been like back then. Because I had gestational diabetes, I did not have to take diabetic medication, but I had to watch my diet. I had to count all my calories. I had to eat small meals 4 to 6 times a day. I had to test urine. You don't think you want to hear all that, but it was very, and she was pregnant. She had 3 kids?
Yeah.
And they're, they have a fit nowadays if you have any diet. And she was a regular diabetic where you have to take insulin, and that had just come out then, and you had to have a lot of money to get it. And so they said, this is another thing supposedly Robert De Niro was paying this exorbitant money for her to get this medication.
Well, and see, that would be the hint to me that it was probably not the husband who was poisoning her, because, probably what happened was that he made the deal with those evil doctors who, I think the doctors were the second most evil people in the movie, next to Robert De Niro. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. They just didn't stand out. But they were behind the scenes of everything. And
yeah.
Then they do an autopsy of one of the Native American women in front of everybody. I didn't know what was going on there. And I'm glad I didn't, because some of the things I saw, like they showed the Ku Klux Klan in a parade.
And it was funny because when I saw that...
Oh my God!
When I saw that, I was worried because Safi was wearing a white hoodie in the theater. And I thought, uh-oh, Safi, you better take that hood off now.
No, I didn't.
Right?
I was just shocked they had that. And there was a couple of things I was really shocked about, but it was entertaining to hear somebody snoring.
Yeah, that was funny. They fell asleep twice. And they were also, I could hear him more clearly. He was entertained by the movie, but I guess it was too long or too late for him. And so, but he was like laughing at a lot of the lines, so he was like, he really was like getting into the movie, and he ate I think he had like popcorn and snackums and sodas and shit, and then he just that's what he was like, and it was really hilarious.
That was funny.
Yeah.
Because we have a cat, our cat Bernie, we talk about him every so often. He's going to the doctor tomorrow. He snores all the time. And I can hear him at night. And so that's what it reminded me of. I thought, well, Bernie, are you here? That's what it sounded like. It was funny.
And you also agreed with me. The last thing I guess we should end on before you give your food review is that is that we both agreed that the music was trash. Right, Safi?
It just wasn't there. There were a couple times they had some Native American music when they were doing
and
it
that
was actually
good.
Drumming.
I like that.
Mainly drumming. And then when they were doing like these special ceremonies. And then they had this, at this parade, they would have a lot of stuff in town because it was a rich town. They had these oil companies and oil all over the place, and all these wealthy Osage people. And they had this guy, and he was clogging to this music, this really good, like, bluegrass music, Mountaineers, bluegrass music. It was really good, but it wasn't very much. It was just like it was like a page worth. It really didn't go into it, but at least it was something of the period, the time period, which I appreciated. And of course, the Native American music with all the drumming, and then they're singing or whatever.
But most of it in the movie was very, very understated, and it really did not service the story. Like, there were so many moments, like, especially the big one with the bomb, that whole moment was, like, totally ruined by the lack of, like, music that would have helped that sequence. Like, there were plenty of moments where it was good to have the silence, but there were so many other moments where there could have been some good music in there, and it was kind of disappointing that there wasn't.
I don't know. I'm thinking that maybe they did that deliberately to make it even worse, sound worse than what it was.
They did that the whole movie, though. They did the whole movie. They did not have, like, music that would help all those key moments. Like, they just had the moments happen with this, like, casual music playing underneath, and it's like, that's not good. Like, you need music there. That's what music is for in a movie.
I don't know. And I do understand what you're saying. That's the only thing I can justify it. Because when the bomb went off, I thought, I'm thinking, we saw the Ku Klux Klan and all these people. They said they've moved into town because of problems. of being robbed or something. And so Leonardo DiCaprio and his wife and extended family were there in that house. And then all of a sudden, the front door, or front window, explodes and shatters into the house. And I thought somebody had thrown stuff or shot at their house. I didn't realize that was from a house that had exploded right down the street, that it caused so much damage to other people's houses because of the explosion. They'd had to use really, probably, I don't know, a stick of dynamite or something to make that horrible explosion. And it was bad. So,
what's your food review of the
well,
movie,
I guess
Safi?
I'll give it a Thanksgiving dinner.
Oh, shit.
And because, it's coming up and we celebrate Thanksgiving. I'm not really sure if it's all accurate, but, the Pilgrims sharing this kind of thing and the Native Americans of the area sharing their things, and they kind of combined and had like a joint family type meal together. I don't know if that's all a myth or if it really happened or what it was like, but I just think that in honor of the Osage Indians or Native Americans, whatever you want to call them, they were in Missouri and they talked about it. They were in Arkansas. I can't remember where else. And then, of course, they had to go to Oklahoma. And they vowed they'd never leave again. They'd never be forced out of their homes. And I say share. It was such a good movie about them, and interesting and terrible time in their lives. How they were ripped off indirectly. That it was such a good movie. I just think it's like the equivalent of like a Thanksgiving dinner. It had everything. And it was very well-rounded and very full.
Who was well-rounded?
The movie. It was well-rounded and full of a lot of good story, character, acting, and costumery, too. Not music, but everything else.
not music!
But everything else. How about you?
Also not Brendan Fraser. Well, no, I already...
No, he was kind of like... What the things that he was saying and having him do...
But the way that he acted... His acting
was crap.
Yeah.
I was shocked he just won an Oscar.
I was sad that I did not laugh at his performance the second and third time, but the first time I was just laughing to no end because of his bad performance. Well, I already rated the movie 2 weeks ago.
Well, I've got to mention, because somebody, and I can't think of his name, but there was another guest actor on it. He played the prosecuting attorney. And so when they were getting cross-examined for, to get Robert De Niro, that guy, a very famous actor.
Will Ferrell.
Oh, Marco, come on.
Oh, Jeff Bridges. John Lithgow.
Yeah, John Lithgow. Somebody had pointed that out to me, that that person had not been in the movie at all until the very end when they had the trial. And I'm kind of glad that they did have a trial and do all that. I mean, you can see it's just an all-male jury. And then you can see, they come in, they're out there, they don't stay there for the whole thing. The witness comes in there for the prosecution. That's true today. So it's just, it was interesting how they did everything. And, his child died. For some unknown reason, the one that wasn't living with his wife while he was in jail, they had surrendered her to another part of the family to take care of her, and she died, and so they let him go to her funeral. So I thought that was a good thing.
So is that all you have to say, Safi, about the movie?
Yes, I would recommend it highly, but it is long, and so you better be take a nap, unless if you see it at night, which I took 2, and that helped a lot.
Well,
Because
see, we would have seen it earlier, but there were no other IMAX showings that were
there were
earlier.
no other showings, period. And then
No,
they
it was just
decided,
IMAX.
then they decided to add some shows at the other theater that's actually down the street from us,
Yeah.
which was irritating. So,
Well, okay. No, okay. Let's go.
let's go.
No. I'm talking to the audience. Okay, now we are going to rank Scorsese movies. This is not going to be very long and extensive because I would prefer to do that kind of video when I've seen all of his movies. So, let's get started. My worst one at number 12 is Cape Fear. I can't stand this movie. I know that it has Jessica Lange in it, so, you'd think that I should like it. But I really don't like it very much. I think that it's really like, I don't know, there's just something about it that I really don't like this movie. I feel like it's sort of like a made-for-TV type movie, and I hate it. I really, for some reason, like, nothing about this is, like, I don't know, like, maybe the original's good, but I'm just not a fan of this movie. I think it's kind of goofy, too. I feel like the tone shifts a lot of the time in the movie from being serious to being goofy. And I think that in some of Scorsese movies, he has a problem with that because, like, we'll talk about that later, because there's another movie later on in the list, and I have the same kind of issue. But again, I could still watch it. It's not one of the worst movies. It's just a movie that I'm not really a fan of. Number 11 is Shutter Island. This movie, I was really disappointed based on the trailer and based on just the mystery in general, and thinking that it was going to be a really, really scary, good movie. But then it was just kind of okay. And then the twist was just so, like, stupid to me. I mean, I really did not like the twist. I felt like the twist was something that was very kind of lame and predictable. But it did have a lot of good atmosphere. It had good music, and I would watch it again sometime. I don't know when, because I'm don't really want to watch it right now at all, but yeah, it's just okay. Nothing special. And then number 10, The Aviator. This is a movie that I feel like it should be really good, but it really just is okay. It has a lot of good moments in it. I really like the part where the main character, is his name John? No, Howard. I really like the part where Howard becomes like a recluse, and then I like the courtroom stuff, and I like some of the stuff with the censorship, with talking about boobs. I can't really remember because I've only seen it once, but it was okay. It was one of those movies where you watch it and it's like, I don't really need to see it again for a while, because it's just good. It's fair. Number 9 is Raging Bull. This movie used to be a little bit higher, but recently, this is another one where I'm really not as much of a fan. I know it sounds like I'm being very negative, but, I'll sound a lot more positive in, let's see, in two movies. So after 2 more movies, I will sound more positive. And that really works because, there's 12 that I've seen, so that would mean that 6 I really like, and then 6 I think are just okay. That doesn't mean I'm saying they're bad, though. But Raging Bull had really good performances. It had some really good photography with the way that the fights were shot. It was very creative. And the music was pretty good. But I just don't like a lot of, like, the the drama in this movie with like the abuse at home and stuff like that. I really don't like movies with that type of stuff too much, because I just feel like I don't know, like I don't want to see that a lot in a movie. Like, it's just something about it that and then I really liked Joe Pesci's performance in the movie, I will say that. But it's not a movie that I would really ever rewatch again, probably. Like, I would say out of all of these, that Raging Bull is the last one that I would choose to watch. Number 8 is The Departed. I feel like this movie's pretty good, but I wish that there was more Jack Nicholson in the movie. I felt as a kid like he was supposed to be like the star, and instead, it's a lot more about Leonardo DiCaprio and the other guy. What's that guy's name again? Matt Damon? Yeah. See, I'm not really much of a fan of him, so... But yeah, this movie's pretty good. It has a lot of twists and turns. It has a lot of, like, dark things that happen that, you're really like, oh, I wanted that character to live. But it's just, overall, it's one of those movies where you're like, yeah, I'd recommend that. Number 7, but I don't think that it was Best Picture material, though. Probably. I can't remember the other movies that came out in 2006, but I would not really say that it would be worth giving Best Picture. Number 7 is The Wolf of Wall Street. I feel like this is probably the most overrated out of all of Scorsese's films, because you look at the story in real life and you think, like, this guy's a real piece of shit, and he's really evil, and he's really, like, sleazy, and he's gross. He's really, really, like, just ugh. And then the way that this movie is, though, it's like a comedy. And it's, like, just so over the top, and, like... And I get what he was trying to do. He was trying to make it so over the top that you would be like, this is gross. But instead, I was like, this is so over the top, it's fun. And it's funny, and it's like, ha-ha, and it's like, it's all a big joke. The Steve Madden and the... all that stuff with the sell me this pen, and, and that's another thing, too. This movie has so many motivational moments, like motivational speeches, motivational moments, so many of those moments that it's practically like an underdog type of movie where you're, like, really inspired at watching this movie, and I feel like that's really the opposite of what you should have felt like when you're watching the movie. And so that's why, I know a lot of people have compared this to Wall Street, Oliver Stone's movie. I would agree, because I think that Wall Street is movie made you feel like you should have felt. Whereas this movie, it made you feel uplifted. It made you feel, like, turned on. It made you feel like just like you're having a laugh, like it's a laugh riot, because this is one of the few comedies that came out in probably 2013. And yeah, I think it's the most overrated one that he's ever made. Although it is very watchable, I will say that. I just really feel like it should have been a slightly less comedic and over the top, and there is a lot of fluff in the movie, which is funny because his 3-hour movies, you really don't feel like there is any fluff, because there's so much story to tell. There's so many things that happen, whereas with Wolf of Wall Street, you feel like there's a lot of fluff in this picture. Number 6 is After Hours. I really feel like this is probably his most underrated movie. I really love this movie. It feels like a really fun, like, intense, thrilling ride. I love movies that take place all in one night. And, yeah, this movie's just, it's also very rewatchable. It's a very good movie. And yeah, I love the feeling that it gives me too. It has a very specific feeling that it gives you that I haven't really gotten from like any other movie. So I really like it for that too. But the main character, he is one of the weaker main characters in Scorsese's filmography. Number 5, I would say, is King of Comedy. Now, this one, I used to put it at like number 1 or number 2. I don't know why I've moved it down. I guess just because I like the other ones a little bit more. But this one I really feel like is underrated too. Jerry Lewis gives an amazing performance. The main character, Rupert Pupkin, he is probably one of the best main characters of the whole filmography. Why? Because he's actually a character that you can root for. Even though that he's really crazy and he's like, really like obsessed, stalkerish. He's really not very talented. That's kind of the point of the movie. The thing is that like he puts so much work into getting this goal that he wants in the movie that you just really like admire him by the end of the movie. Of like he went for his goal and he got what he wanted. He was king for a night. And I just thought he was kind of badass by the end of the movie. Like, even though he was a piece of shit, and he was kind of a loser, you really felt bad for him, especially, like, at the end of the movie when his comedic routine was basically like his, like, mini biography, like, and it was really depressing and upsetting, but funny at the same time. Like, you really liked this character because he achieved his goal. And he beat all odds. I mean, he was untouchable. Like, because he did everything right to the point of where, like, he only had to spend a couple of years in prison. Like, that was really badass, his character. And I know that that's going to raise some eyebrows, but, a lot of other people call the character Wolf of Wall Street badass, and I don't know why he would do that, so... because he sleeps with hookers and does drugs. Like, wow. So number 4 is Goodfellas. Goodfellas, I feel like, is obviously a masterpiece. It's extremely good. The music is fantastic. The characters are fantastic. It is a perfect movie in every way, shape, or form. It is so entertaining. I could watch it at any time, anywhere. It really just is like the best. But there's 3 other movies that I feel like I would want to watch even more, and I think they're a little bit more the best. Number 3 is Killers of the Flower Moon. And I know that that's going to make people like gasp in shock. I really love this movie. As I said, watching it 3 times, each time you find more stuff to love. And it's not just, what you think, but it's like genuinely, like, there's so many things to love because it's 3.5 hours. So there's so much stuff. There's so many scenes that when you go back and rewatch it, you look forward to those scenes. The cinematography, I feel like, is some of the best cinematography in his entire career. Although the music is not very good. That's the one thing that's a big flaw. Number 2 is Taxi Driver. This film is just a classic. It is amazing. It's one of those movies where it almost feels like a dream rather than a movie. I really love the main character and just how, like, unlikable he is, but at the same time, he has a little bit about him that's likable, like, because, he was a Vietnam veteran, and so a lot of his problems probably came from, being in that unnecessary, stupid war. And I love the story. I love the 1970s feel of it. I feel like they never would have made this movie today. That's for damn sure. And yeah, it's a perfect movie. And for some reason, like, I'm more drawn to it over most of his other movies now, because I just love how dark it is. I love how it ends. I love how, like, he just so happens to, like, find the perfect opportunity and the perfect situation to, like, you know, blow people away in order to save this girl, Jodie Foster. And it's like, it was so lucky for him, because he really just wanted to go around killing innocent people, and instead of that, he just so happened to do this good deed at the end. And you know, I feel like there's not a lot of movies where that happens. You know, I feel like in a lot of movies the character, they change into being good by the end, and then, you know, they do good. But whereas this is like, the character is clearly bad. I mean, he's clearly a bad person, but he just so happened to do that good deed at the end. And so that would leave number one, my favorite Scorsese movie, which is going to make people cry, probably dislike the video and unsubscribe. But I don't really care, because it's my opinion. You know, they're all good movies. I will watch any of them again. My number one is The Irishman. I really feel like this movie is misunderstood, because I hated it at first, and I really felt like this is not the movie that I wanted. But then after I watched it a second time, and a third time, and a fourth time, and a fifth time, and so on, I really felt like, despite all of its flaws, and despite the fact that this really isn't the movie that we should have gotten, you know, it's a hitman. It's a movie about a hitman, and you know, he hardly kills people in the whole movie on screen. That's kind of a problem. Despite the fact that, you know, the true story is probably a bunch of bullshit. You know, I don't really believe this main character in real life. Like, I don't believe the real story. I think that something else probably happened. Even though you have all those flaws, I really love this movie. I really feel like it is a perfect movie as well. The emotional impact in this movie of, like, the main character becoming best friends with Jimmy Hoffa and then having to betray him, it's really, really impactful. And I feel like that's the reason why I put it at number one, is because the emotional impact was there for me. And especially the last act was very depressing, and it's just very, like, it's very different from any other gangster movie, where, you know, sometimes in a gangster movie you'll see, like, oh no, that tragic thing, oh no, they're really not as cool as they think they are, yeah. But this one really, like, took the cake, with, like, all the captions on the people too. Like, you'd see all these people, and they'd have a caption where it would say, like, shot in his kitchen making toast. You'd have another guy, it'd be like, car bomb 1991, and then you'd have another guy, and it's like, oh, that guy got stabbed at the grocery store. And it's like, just all these people, they think they're so cool, and they just all died these horrible, tragic deaths at young ages. And it's like, it was a perfect anti-gangster movie. It was a perfect, like, ending to Scorsese's gangster film career. Even though I have not seen Casino, obviously, as you guys can tell, and I know that some people would probably say that that's their favorite movie. I bet that it probably won't be, even though it'll probably be really good for me. So anyways, that is my rankings, and yeah, so please like this video, comment, and subscribe, and then tomorrow we will be reviewing Breakfast at Tiffany's. Oh, Safi picked that one out if you guys couldn't figure it out. So anyways, goodbye everybody, see you soon.